Imagine if you went into a human house 10,000 years ago, what would you find in the kitchen? Will the vehicle be just meat? Will people just eat berries, or bread, fish, nuts, honey, roots, or even insect part of their diet? Today we get food from the supermarket, meat is in separate sections, vegetables are separate, fruits are separate, and packaged food is different. But 10,000 years ago, there was no supermarket, the food that was available was from nature. But it's important to understand one important thing. 10,000 years ago, not everyone ate the same food. Someone had forest, someone had a river, someone had the seacoast, someone had grassland, and some people were starting early farming. Therefore, there is no single answer to the ancient human diet. A coastal community ate more fish and shellfish. People living in the forest used to hunt nuts, berries, roots, deer, and wild boar. Large animals and edible seeds were important in grassland. Fish, freshwater, shellfish, water birds, and aquatic plants were found near the rivers and the lakes. And in the regions, people had started growing grains and legumes. So the question is not what humans ate 10,000 years ago. The question is, where did they live? What season did they live? And what food was available? The time rough of 10,000 years ago was around 8000 BCE. This period was after the end of the last ice age. The climate was warming, the forest spreads were happening, some large ice age animals had dispersed, the rivers, lakes, coastline, and grasslands were changing, and these changes also changed human food. First, let's talk about hunter-gatherer. Hunter-gatherers were people who did not grow food, but hunted, fished, and gathered. Animals were important in their diet, but that doesn't mean he only ate meat. Along with meat, he also used fish, eggs, nuts, seeds, fruits, berries, roots, tubers, leaves, honey, and seasonal plants. Plants in the environment could be a major source of daily calories. Hunting was more important in places, and fish and shellfish were very valuable food in the coastal areas. If you lived near the seacoast, you would get the advantage of catching fish. Shellfish could be collected, seabird and his eggs could meet. Catch communities also hunts for sea matters. Food sources in coastal areas could be relatively predictable, especially compared to large animal hunting. Archaeologists find shell middens at many coastal sites. Shell mids are basically old piles where thousands of shells, fish bones, animal bones, and food waste were collected. This evidence shows that shellfish and fish were an integral part of the ancient diets. People living near rivers and lakes also used to fish. They could use hooks, nets, traps, harpoons, and fishware. Fish wheels were wooden structures that were built to trap fish in shallow water. Freshwater shellfish, water birds, and reds could also be USS. The food menu was different in the forests. There were deer, wild boars, rabbits, birds, and small animals, but the foresters weren't just hunting grounds. There were nuts, acorns, hazelnuts, balanced, berries, mushrooms, wild fruits, and edible roots could also be found. Nuts were special imports because they are high in fat and calories. They could also be dried and stored. Some plants were not safe to eat directly. They had to be processed. For examples, some seeds had to be grinded. Some of the roots had to be cooked. Soaking, heating, or repeated washing was required to remove toxins from the kuch plant. It was not written in knowledge books. This knowledge was passed on to the experience of parents, elders, and the community. The large animals hunt in grassland could have been important, but there was also the large game hunting risky. An animal needed group coordination to hunt. Spears, traps, stone blades, and planning were his own, and if the hunt failed, the group had to rely on alternative food sources. Therefore, successful communities do not rely on just one food source. She mixes meats, plants, fish, seeds, and seasonal foods. Now let's talk about early farming. About 10,000 years ago, humans were starting to grow plants in the Kuch regions. In places like Fertile Crescent, the cultivation of wheat, barley, lentil, grind, and other plants was developed gradually. This change was very important in human history. Farming along with hunting and gathering made the food supply more predictable, but farming didn't mean that food became easy. Crop could fail, the drought could come, the pests could do crop destroy, and if the community relies too much on one or two crops, it could become dietless diverse. Early farmers were also starting to manage animals, sheep, goats, and other animals graduatingly domesticated. These animals could get meat, milk, hides, wool, and manure. But dairy products were not common everywhere and in every community, and adult humans' milk digest corn was also not widespread in ancient times. Therefore, It should not be assumed that every early farmer used to drink milk. Now the question is, how did ancient people cook food? The most basic method was fire. The meat could have been roasted over an open fire. The fish could be smoked. Roots and tubers could be baked near the hot stones. Some communities' earth ovens would do that. The earth oven consisted of a ground pit. Hot stones were placed. The food was covered with leaves or soil. And then there was slow cooking. Seeds and grains were grinded with stone tools. Mortars and pastels were marks and residuo of the grinding. Stones tell archaeologists that people used to process plant foods. The pottery was not available everywhere at the same time. Before the pottery, some people used to water heat the heated stones by using them in water-filled skin bags, wooden containers, or pits. When pottery developed, cooking and storage became easier. Storing food was very important for survival. Fresh food is not available every season, therefore, meat and fish were dried, they were smoked, fruits and plants were dried, nuts and seeds were stored. Some food was kept in underground pits, caves, or shaded cold places. Animal fat was also important because it gives a lot of energy in small amounts. Fat could have become a survival food during winter or food shortages. Now an important question: how do archaeologists know what ancient humans ate? They don't use time machines, they use evidence. There are cut marks on animal bones, which shows that the animals were fetishized. Fish bones and shells give evidence of ancient meals. Charred seeds and plant remains show that the plants were collected or cooked. Starch residues can be found on grinding stones. Stable isotope analysis on human bones and tether can help scientists know how important marine food, plant, or animal was in the diet. Dental calculus, that is, the hard material that settles on the thigh, sometimes preserves microscopic plant particles. Ingredients can be found inside ancient pottery that offer clues for cooking and food storage, and sometimes the preserved human waste also gives the scientist direct evidence of what people used to eat. But in archaeology, the certificate is not always complete. The evidence found on a site represents a specific place and time. That's why researchers combine multiple evidence types. So what did humans eat 10,000 years ago? He used to eat meat, ate fish and shellfish, nuts, berries, fruits, seeds, roots, and plants were eaten. Honey and eggs were also part of the food at places. Early grains and legumes were also coming to the regions, and some communities are moving toward farming and animal management. The ancient human diet was not simple. It was the result of the local environment, the weather, skills, and community knowledge. Today we see food on supermarket shelves. Ancient humans used to see food in the landscape. Forest was his market. The river was their food source, animals were their meat, clothing, tools, and fuel, and seasons dictated his menu. If you were alive 10,000 years ago, what would you have sucked in? Collecting nuts and berries in the forest, catching fish near the river, or doing a large animal hunt with a group?